Have you ever paid attention to how some people seem to radiate an almost supernatural magnetic authority over the environment around them, without ever uttering a single sound? They don't need to raise their voices. They don't plead for attention. They don't demand or negotiate. They simply step back, quietly, firmly, deliberately. And in that very moment, everything shifts. The atmosphere changes. The air grows heavy. People suddenly begin to feel the absence, to question themselves, to chase after them, to feel the emptiness that silence carves into the space. Now imagine if you could embody the same strength. Imagine if you refused to give immediate reactions to everything that pulled at your attention. If instead of answering impulsively, you chose the pause. If instead of exploding, you chose to withdraw. If instead of scattering your energy outward, you decided to hold it within. What do you think would unfold? That is the point. That is the hidden threshold few ever dare to cross. Because the moment you stop being endlessly available, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, the world around you spirals into a subtle crisis. People who once believed they had power over you, who thrived on your predictability, suddenly find themselves destabilized. They were used to controlling you through your emotions, through your quick replies, through your desperate eagerness to please. But the very day you decide to retreat, to conserve your essence, the entire game flips. Those who thought they had you figured out come face to face with a shocking truth. They never really knew you at all. Carl Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Now think about this deeply. When you make yourself unavailable, who becomes restless? Who grows irritated? Who tries to provoke you, stir you, break your silence, simply to drag some reaction out of you? Their reaction reveals far more about them than it ever could about you. But even more importantly, it exposes something terrifying. How much of your own power
What is this
you have
place?
unconsciously handed away, just because you couldn't bear to be You keep sacrificing fragments of yourself, smiling when you don't mean it, saying yes when you're dying to scream no, answering instantly when your body begs for rest. You do it to keep the peace, to hold on to people who, deep inside, were never truly with you in the first place. Every forced agreement, every automatic reply, every emotional defense, you leak pieces of your energy into the void. And at the end of the day, what is left in your chest? Fatigue, quiet frustration, a hollow emptiness you can't name. And you know why? Because you are far too available to people who do not even deserve a fraction of your silence. This is not about rejecting the world. It is about reclaiming yourself. It is about stepping onto the path Jung called individuation, the difficult but liberating journey of becoming whole, authentic, undivided. And that process always begins in silence, because silence, when chosen consciously, when rooted in awareness rather than fear, is not weakness. It is raw, unshakable power.
Stand at a precipice.
So let me ask you again,
a moment that will
how
define
long
our future,
will you allow others to
our
pull
very
your
soul.
strings, to dictate your moods, to trigger your wounds like a puppet on command? How long will you hand over your sovereignty in the form of endless reactions? Perhaps it is finally time to sever those strings, to disappear from the circus of noise, to become a riddle. Because the day you stop being easily available is the day everything changes. Since childhood, you have been trained, sometimes subtly, sometimes brutally, to always be present,
fellow
to always
citizens,
respond, to always
today
say
we
yes,
stand at
even
the
when your heart
crossroads
was
of
bleeding
history.
no.
A moment
You were
that will
conditioned to
define
believe that your
generations to
worth is
come.
measured by your availability, that love is earned through self-abandonment, that acceptance is won by sacrificing your silence. But here lies a truth that few dare to voice. Excessive
My
availability is
brothers,
not kindness.
the
It is
time for
captivity.
waiting is
It is
over.
not a virtue. It is a slow, invisible
My brothers
prison.
and sisters,
As long as you remain
today we
accessible at all
gather
times,
under the watchful
emotionally,
eyes of
mentally,
history
physically, you will
in this
remain
hallowed
exploitable.
space.
You will be drained dry, used up and discarded the moment you no longer serve someone else's convenience. Why? Because predictability turns you into a tool. Because anything abundant, anything too easy to reach loses its sacredness. People stop respecting what they never had to earn. They begin pressing you like an emergency button,
My fellow
using you for
citizens,
comfort, for
let us
distraction, for
embrace the
validation,
challenges
before
before
tossing
us
you back
with
onto the shelf
courage
once their
and
crisis passes.
unwavering
And the
determination
cruel
for the
part,
future.
you don't even notice.
We have
Because
to
you are still
remain
lost in the
vigilant.
illusion that constant availability will
We have to
finally make
stand
someone
our
truly
ground.
present for you. But it never does. It never will. Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to gain acceptance, approval, and recognition. It is precisely this mask that
brothers,
chains you to excessive
The time for
availability.
contemplation
You smile
is over.
while
The
suffocating.
hour of action
You reply
is
when you're
upon us,
collapsing. You
and we
justify
must
and defend
rise.
yourself as if you owe the world an explanation for your very existence. But here is the raw truth. The more your life revolves around others' stages, the more you vanish from your own. Constant availability is a subtle but devastating form of self-abandonment, a camouflaged hunger for approval, a desperate avoidance of rejection, a way to control others' perception of you at the cost of erasing yourself. And the price you pay is brutal. Your peace, your vitality, your inner balance. You pour yourself out as if your energy were infinite, yet it is finite, fragile, sacred. And here's the most bitter revelation. Those who demand your constant presence never really want you. They only crave what you provide. Comfort, distraction, validation, a temporary anesthetic for their own emptiness. The moment you refuse, the moment you set boundaries, the moment you dare to pull back, they call you selfish, cold, distant. Not because you've changed, but because you stopped functioning as their personal tool. And the paradox is cruel. The more available you are, the less valuable you become. Because what is abundant is easily discarded. What is always there is never cherished. No one respects what they never had to earn. So pause and reflect. Who truly deserves your time? Who deserves the sacredness of your attention, your presence, your listening? Or perhaps an even deeper question. Who actually deserves your absence? But to answer that, we must face something deeper. Why do we react so compulsively? Why do we yield so easily? Why do we give away our energy at the first touch? The answer lies in what Jung called psychic energy, that invisible current that powers every thought, every emotion, every action. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Every impulsive reaction is a leak. Every moment you defend yourself against a petty insult, every time you argue to prove yourself right, every time you give
It's
energy
not
to
about
someone
what
who
we've
doesn't value
lost,
you, you
but what we
bleed,
have left to
you
build.
weaken, you scatter your own essence. And Jung warned, what you resist persists. The more you fight, the more you entangle yourself in the web. The more you explain, the more you bind yourself to the illusion. This is why those who live perpetually exhausted are not weak. They are misdirected. Their energy has been siphoned into places that do not return anything nourishing. And exhaustion makes you vulnerable. When you are drained, you become prey. Manipulative,
We
parasitic
stand at a
people sense
precipice
this
of
instantly.
change.
They
A
see you do
moment
not
where
know how
our
to guard your
collective
field. They
choices will
press your
echo for
wounds and you react.
generations.
They push your buttons and you move like clockwork. But Jung also taught that a balanced psyche is one that learns to conserve its energy, to master the art of silence, to withdraw without shame, to say no without explanation, because true strength is not in constant reaction. It is in choosing when to act and when to remain still. Have you noticed how much of your life you waste in invisible leaks? Replaying an old conversation at night, ruminating over an insult, writing entire speeches in your mind for people who don't deserve a word. This is psychic hemorrhage. This is energy burned in vain. You are feeding ghosts that should have long dissolved. Psychic energy, when guarded, becomes presence. You enter a room and command respect without saying anything. But when mismanaged, it leaves you hollow, reactive, easily manipulated. And the world has no mercy on those who give themselves away too cheaply. This is where silence enters, not as weakness, but as the highest discipline. Because silence starves projection. Silence dismantles manipulation. Silence exposes truth. People who thrive on your reactivity do not need to yell or threaten. They only need to press the wounds you've left exposed. And if you react every time, they own you. But the moment you stop, the structure collapses. Your silence becomes unbearable for them, not because you are wrong, but because it unmasks their dependence. It reflects back the emptiness they've been hiding from. Your withdrawal forces them to face themselves. And for many, that is the most terrifying mirror of all. Jung once wrote, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And it is precisely in silence, in withdrawal, in refusing to feed the cycle that the shadow of others surfaces. But the question is, are you ready? Are you willing to endure the discomfort of being misunderstood, rejected, even attacked, for the sake of your own sovereignty? Because true silence is not absence. It is power condensed. It is the energy of the sovereign, of the one who no longer plays the game of reaction. It is the language of those who no longer need to prove anything to anyone. And here lies the ultimate truth. The most devastating silence is not the one that unsettles others. It is the silence that heals you. The silence that rebuilds your essence. The silence that reconnects you with the sacred flow of your own energy. Because sovereignty begins not when you cut external noise, but when you direct your inner current with precision, when you decide where your life force flows and where it will never again be wasted. So the final question remains, are you ready to pay the price of freedom? Are you ready to be misunderstood, even hated, for choosing yourself? Because in that silence, in that withdrawal, something extraordinary awakens. The beginning of your true self.